Hey, my name's Andrew, and in this video, I want to show you how to take your video footage from looking like this to this. Way better looking, right? Well, let's go back to the crappy footage. So step number one is the most important one, and that is lighting. Right now I have my room light on, and it's basically just making everything lit up, and it's not lighting my face up, so it's kind of doing everything wrong. So to counteract that, the first thing I would recommend doing is buying some soft boxes. Now you don't have to go buy a soft box. You can position your camera in front of a window, but what you want is light naturally shining on your face. So a soft box does a really good job of that. It's basically a light with a big filter in front of it that's going to diffuse the light and make it softer. You can pick these up on Amazon pretty cheap. I'll leave a link in the description for one that I found. But the ones I'm using, I have two of them. And so first of all, let's just turn those on. I have one right here in front of me. So immediately that's going to suddenly make me so much brighter, and it's going to give some depth from the background. But I have another one set up over here that I'm going to go turn on. And though that's not going to make a big difference, it will once I turn off the room light. So let's do that next. All right, and instantly in those 3 steps, the video footage is already looking a lot better, but we can still get better. Now I'm lit up, but the background, there's just not a lot of definition. So it's always nice, and this is where you can kind of be creative and mix it up. But I have some lighting in the back that I'm gonna go turn on now. All right, now that those lights are on behind me, you can tell that the background is just a little bit more interesting to look at, and it kind of gives a little bit more depth. So having some lights behind me actually makes the video pop a little bit, and I'd really recommend what I'm using right here are some Christmas lights, and those, as you see when we get to the next step, will really have this nice bokeh effect in the background. But we got to do a little bit of tweaking. This whole time I've been using automatic settings, so the camera has just been picking what it thinks is best, but it doesn't know what's best. So we're gonna go in and now switch it to manual settings. All right, I have now switched over to manual settings. I've already have these set up. As you can tell, the background is a little bit more blurred. And so I just wanna kind of do a walkthrough of my settings. And I wanna set this up in a way that anybody using any camera or lens can get the same effect. But I will be talking about what I'm using, which is the Canon M50 and the Sigma 16mm lens. So if you want to get the exact same results and you don't have a camera yet, I'd recommend purchasing the Canon M50 and the Sigma 16mm lens. I'll leave a link in the description for those, because as you can tell, this just looks awesome for a YouTube video setting. So I'm going to kind of be just talking rule of thumb. These aren't going to be exactly what you're going to need, but I'll try to make it as simple as possible. I know manual settings can be a little bit intimidating. So the first one we're gonna start with is the aperture. Now this is the one that has a little F in front of it. So that number, you want it to be as low as possible. So right now I'm using an aperture of 1.4, which is the lowest aperture that this lens will allow. And what that's going to do is allow the background to become really blurry. So you want to keep that as low as possible. I don't know what your camera will allow as your lowest aperture, but just go in there and scroll it all the way down to the smallest number. All right, the next setting you're going to want to adjust is your ISO. You want that to be also the lowest number possible. I have my ISO set at 100. You can turn it up a little bit if it's too dark. And the next thing you're going to need to adjust is the frame rate. Now, this also is going to kind of be something that you're gonna have to play with. You might not have exactly like mine, but I have 1/125. I don't know the very specific way to say it. And the frame rate and the ISO, you might have to tweak those to get the lighting just right. But a general rule of thumb is a low ISO and then a frame rate that also is not super low. I don't think you really want to go below 60. If you want to copy my settings, I'm using an aperture of 1.4. I'm using an ISO of 100 and a frame rate of 1/125. Now, last thing you want to do, this is an optional step, but adjusting the Kelvin, you can have it set to an automatic white balance. But what I like to do is go into the Kelvin and adjust it so it's not adjusting as the video is playing, because sometimes if you make a jump cut, which is just like a cut in your video to another part of the video, the white balance kind of adjusts as the video is recording if you have it on automatic white balance. So if you set it to a Kelvin that looks really good for the video footage, it's going to stay that same way the entire video. So there's a little bit more consistency. So that's what I've been doing. I have my Kelvin set to, I think, 4700. So you just have to play with that and see what looks the best for your video. So the final step is any finishing touches like color grading or LUTs. I don't really do any special color grading. I'm kind of basic like that, but I do apply 2 LUTs. If you have software that allows you to put a LUTs, which is basically just a video filter, I would highly recommend doing that because it'll take this footage, which looks good, but it'll make it kind of pop and look a little bit more interesting. So let's throw those LUTs up right now. And suddenly the footage looks a little bit more interesting, and I really like the 2 LUTs that I use. The one is kind of more vibrant color, brings out the skin color and just makes everything look a little bit more interesting. And then the other one takes the blacks and makes them a little bit more gray. And I just like the way they look. So those are another optional thing, but they kind of make your video look a little bit more interesting. But anyway, that is how you take any camera that you're using and go from looking like complete garbage to now having a really nice YouTube setup. And so I hope that you can steal my my mistakes and my knowledge over the years and apply that to your YouTube videos. This video was inspired by somebody that commented and wanted to know how to get this bokeh effect in the background. And I'm gonna completely butcher your name, so I'm not gonna say it, but you know who you are. So thanks for leaving that comment. So anyway, all that to say, I do read your comments and I will respond to you if you have any questions, so leave them in the comments section. If this video was helpful, drop a like. And if you wanna see more videos, feel free to subscribe. And if you do, I'll see you next time.